The BBS WWIV was written so that I could run it originally. And that other people wanted to run it, did run it, was just an after effect. Back when I was in college, I guess, the first other person started running it, and I was kind of upset that they'd taken my software and was running it on their BBS.
You know, I really did not write them with the expectation of becoming sort of a big name in BBSs. I was simply a programmer. I preferred to do my own programming. So obviously I'd rather write my own BBS than buy somebody else's and run it.
I wanted a bulletin board. I was, 15. I, couldn't afford to buy any software. And so, what do? You write your own.
I was into it for that reason. I was a computer programming type, and I wanted to do all these cool things with a piece of software. I wasn't really, I wasn't running the same kind of bulletin board as guys that were running these social BBSs, trying to look for friends and get all kinds of people and files online. I was just trying to write some good software and maybe meet a few people that way.
I just saw it more of a programming challenge, and the more users that were using my BBS, the better, because they were testing my software for me for free.
My start in BBSs happened in 1980. I was still working at Martin Marietta, and a friend of mine, Dave Ebert, had a Connection 80 BBS that he was trying to run on a TRS-80. And he said, this is great. And he knew that I was big into modem-based communications, and he says, check this out. And I was a snotty kid at the time. I did what snotty technical geek kids do. I called him up, and I told him his system was really cool. But I couldn't tell him that because, what do? You got to say I wasn't doing it, so what I did had to be cooler. And so, I basically said, that's really cool, but of course it's written all crummy. And, if I were to do it better, it'd be like this and this and this. And we were at a poker game one time, actually, in the summer of 1980, and he just threw down his cards and said, I am so sick and tired of you shooting off your mouth. You either write something that's better or shut up.
I've always been somebody to go into rampant featureitis programming. In other words, if I can think of something to add, add it. Perhaps not consistent with other things, but have people make suggestions for things they'd like to see.
You'd see somebody's code and say, hey, that's clever. And so you'd incorporate some bits and pieces out of this thing and merge it into that thing.
Somebody come up and say, why don't we put that feature in? Okay, so we'd sit down and drink a lot of beer, smoke a lot of cigarettes, and come up with how we were going to do it.
And I remember one instance, the Commodore 64 could not keep time accurately. It had a software clock, and it just went out of sync all the time.
Every time you access the serial drive, it would cause that clock to slow down.
Which was always.
Yeah.
So there was a chip in the I.O. port called the time of day clock, and we couldn't figure out how to use it. And so at the World of Commodore, that was the number one question in our minds. And we actually ran into Jim Butterfield, the guru, and he told us how it worked, and it was just, oh, that's simple. And then from then on, we had accurate time.
I would get up in the middle of the night and just watch. I did nothing to Fido at all. I just watched. I watched the modem lights, how they would be half off, half on, wasting money. I would look at FidoNet, sit and think, and I would go, okay, there's better ways. I don't know what they are, but there's better ways.
As a programmer, you tend not to see the concrete results of what you do. I mean, we could talk to customers and find out how they were using it. We'd find out that a hospital is using a BBS for a particular function, or various other companies and things that they're using it for various purposes. But you don't get a real concrete feeling, like as if if you were an architect, you could build a building and then point to it and say, look, I did that.
I guess the ones that stick in my mind is the ones that make me feel good. In other words, if there's a BBS that was for battered women or something, and they had no other way of getting together, and they wouldn't have to physically travel, and if they were still in a situation that they were unable to control. They could get away and get into this group of like people and things like that.
We had a situation once where in the mid 80s they busted the Cali cartel and Colombian drug lords, and on television there they were using TBBS software to communicate with the drug cartel. People says, doesn't that make you feel bad? I said, hey, wait a minute. You don't understand. These are the guys that have all the money in the world. You don't see them buying cheap cars. They buy the best. I said, it clearly means I've made the best. They bought it.
At one point, oh, this is a little embarrassing. It seems strange. Someone got my software from me and put up a board, and I was providing technical support, and this board was supposedly for people who grew orchids. And apparently they were talking in code and exchanging pictures of the orchids they had grown. Well, it wasn't orchids. I found out later they were busted for child pornography. And I wouldn't have wanted to be associated with them, and police never came knocking on my door about it. But I'm sure I was in the membership list. I don't know, maybe they looked into me, I don't know. I thought that was pretty disgusting. They would do that and even use my software for that, but it just goes to show when you write a program, you never know what it will be used for.
I can tell you about BBS programs that have died within 3 months of the author getting married. Best of luck, good luck, guys. Hope you're happy. We miss you.
When they say, well, I'm going to continue working on this, that's,
I mean, we're guys.
That's the kiss of death. And it's like,
Like I say, it was an interesting time in that we felt like we were really getting into something new. Even though there were bulletin boards out there, everybody was creating their own online image at that point.
It was write my own BBS software, and then I was kind of surprised originally when other people asked, can I have a copy of that? And I was thinking, well, why don't you just write your own? Come on. And that just seemed like what you would do. You want to run a BBS, you write your own software for it, of course.